The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people over on Patreon. Amazing people like Stephen P., Gilmer, Mr. Biscuits, Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Charles M., and Eric H. have been wonderful enough to support the show over there. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of each episode along with some other bonus goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out all there is to offer. On this episode of Still Loading, will you race against me? Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, it is the finale of Mario Mania of Mario Month for 2024. This was an extra long one this year, all in celebration of episode 300, all the way back in February. Shout out to the Super Mario Fantasy Draft. Thank you once again to all my guests on episode 300. But joining me today to help round out this portion of Mario Mania, the final episode of Mario Mania this year, are two of my good podcasting friends. I've known them for years. We have collaborated a number of times. Their podcast has been on hiatus, unfortunately, for quite some time, but that doesn't mean they aren't great podcasters. So joining me today are my good friends, the giant dragons of podcasting, Brian and Joe from the Taste of Dragons podcast. Guys, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good.
I've never considered myself a giant. This is exciting.
Well, dragons are big, right?
They are.
They are. It's true. We've been on hiatus for probably about a year now. Life got in the way for pretty much out of all of us, because there's 5 of us on the podcast, and literally
So
life
intense.
hit all of us at the exact same time, like just hard. So like even our last podcast, we're like, all right, we're back in it. And then no, we weren't.
Ghosted.
Nope. But that's how things go sometimes, right? So we had 4 nice long years where we recorded weekly, put them out weekly, and then
Yep. Never missed an episode.
Never missed an episode.
Real good about that.
And then we missed all of them. So.
And we made up for it really hard.
We did.
Well, real talk, it's impressive that you guys went that long with 5 co-hosts. That is an immense amount of work to schedule and coordinate on at all, let alone a weekly basis. Now, it is beneficial that y'all live pretty close to each other. I know, though I do know, Hassel's up kind of my way, actually, up here in the Northeast.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
But
yes.
yeah. So, but most of you, the four out of the 5 of you are all down in Florida, so it makes it a little bit easier. But even so, like I can barely find time to visit my friend Justin, who he's been on the show a bunch of times, who's like 30 minutes away from me, let alone finding time to podcast with him. But thank you both for setting aside your evening tonight, or not the whole evening. I'm not going to be taking 5 hours of your night, but thank you for setting aside some time for this. Thank you for joining me. So to kick this off, we are talking about Mario Kart Wii. It is the only the only Mario Kart game on the Wii, but I guess it's kind of par for the course with most Mario Karts. You don't normally double up on consoles.
It's true.
But we're talking about Mario Kart Wii, and I forget. You guys were streaming, and I mentioned that I was looking for guests for it, and I asked if you'd be interested, and you both said yes for this one. So I gotta ask, like, what about Mario Kart Wii does it for you? Like, what do you like about this game? What are some of your memories with it? Why Mario Kart Wii? Because this game is honestly one of the more polarizing, from my understanding.
It is. Yeah, it's so this one's kind of interesting because this one came out before we were dating. This came out the year before we were dating. So like when we started dating, this was the most recent Mario Kart.
Yep.
And so, what do you do when when you're first starting dating? You're trying to figure out what each other's interests are, how you guys interact, that type of stuff. And what better way than like a Mario Kart or a Mario Party to just completely drive a wedge in you. So
it's like the monopoly of video games.
it is, isn't it? So we 1 second.
We apologize. I believe we're having technical difficulties on our side.
No, it's all good.
All right,
it's all good.
You're good?
Okay, cool.
Okay,
It's on our screen, sir.
I had a very normal, completely normal friend group where we were all very large video game fans, and we did completely normal things like start a theater troupe based on video game characters and do live shows about that, and we did completely normal things. And one of our favorite things to do after rehearsals was to play Mario Party or play Mario Kart or
get together
and play some game. We were very into video games. I don't know if I've made that as clear as I could. Very normal. We were completely normal. I should keep hitting that part home. So normal.
We were normal.
Yeah, zing. It was before we started dating, and we were just friends at that point. And then my large group of friends, essentially after rehearsals and stuff, we would still hang out, and at this point in time we were playing Mario Kart, which humorously enough I never play with anyone.
It's true.
I play Mario Kart by myself. I do not play it with other people. This was probably the first time I played it with people in years.
Yeah.
I had too many people in my life that were don't enjoy losing.
It's true. I think what's really funny about this is because you could play with so many players, and there's so many different control schemes that you could actually do this with, that it was very funny. Like we all have our controller, there's a certain amount of controllers, so we're all passing them to one another, and so like you would get a controller, be like, oh man, I really don't want the Wii control, I don't want the wheel, I don't want the wheel.
Oh, I went hard on all of the accessories.
So then you would like blame it on like, oh well, I had the wheel, of course I was going to do bad. Like it was like you would make excuses. It
was great.
It's this was a lot of fun, and it was at a very interesting time in our lives, and so this definitely holds some memories with us.
It's probably the first one I went back to playing with people with.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't play the GameCube one. I wouldn't play with anybody. And it was I would like to watch. I would watch other people play, and then I would just go play it by myself because I don't like losing, and I also don't like winning. I don't want to be taking anyone else's joy from them. So I also don't like losing. So it was very and I have a brother and a sister, so I always had to win in those situations. So it was one of those you either win or you lost. Didn't matter what place you were. As long as you didn't get blue shelled, you were fine.
True.
Getting bullet billed was always fun.
Yeah, that's true.
That's so funny.
It was great.
Yeah.
That's so funny that like you have this bizarre combination of like I need to like the killer instinct of like I must win, all must bow before me, but then at the same time you hate losing so much that your empathy kicks in. You're like, I can't make anyone feel that.
That's
right?
exactly what it is.
Awful.
It's so horrible. This is why I play a lot of single player games in general, because I just don't want to see anyone. I don't want to make anyone else's not happy. I'm a people pleaser. This is what I do.
It's true.
I can relate to that. I'm not as much of a people pleaser, but I'm a bit of a sore loser. I've talked about it on like my LAN party episode earlier this year, where like I just get really angry if I think I'm supposed to be good at something and then I'm not and I'm losing. Then I just get really like unjustifiably angry, and I don't like that. It's a character flaw that I really don't like, and I technically should work on it, but that requires me to be putting myself into a situation where I'm purposely making myself angry and trying to control the anger. It just doesn't seem like a good time all around for all parties concerned.
I hear you. There's an irrational anger that happens when it doesn't work out the way I think it should, and I'm like, what could I have done better? What could I have changed? Like, you can't change anything. It just happened. You lost the race. It is what it is, girl. Move on.
Yeah, you got blue shelled. There's nothing else. That's just what happens, man.
Well, especially in this game, it feels like they really try to up the ante in terms of items, because there's so many different items that can change the course of the race. It can change who's winning, who's losing, that kind of stuff. Like even when I was playing this game in preparation for this episode, I got blue shelled so many times. Granted, I was only playing on 50cc, but even so, it was just like there's so much shit thrown at you in this game. It's everywhere.
It is. This game has one of those like those weird interfaces too, where the UI is so colorful. And because I think that this is the one they added the drifting sparks. The drifting sparks were in this one. I don't remember them being in the other ones. If they were, please correct me. But I think that because it helped me. This is one of the few where when I played with other people, I was like, all right, I don't feel that stupid about not understanding how the drift works or not being that good at it. There was a visual cue now, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And the Wiimotes pulled really well. Like, I mean, I was not an early fan of the Wiimotes and the Joy-Con. That was just not for me.
You mean the Wiimote, the Joy-Con is a Switch. Oh, you're talking about
Switch. What was the
nunchuck?
The nunchuck. There we go. The Wiimote and the nunchuck. Thank you. Sorry, I've had Joy-Cons for way too long.
It's been almost a decade of Switch.
I get it. Has it really?
Yeah. 2017. We're only 3 years away from a decade of Switch.
You're not wrong, man.
Goodness gracious.
That's
kind of awesome.
I mean, Switch 2 supposedly is coming. By the time this episode comes out, a direct may already have happened.
It's true. You're not wrong. So cool. You're not wrong. But yeah, there were so many different ways you could control it. And, like we mentioned before, like depending on who you're playing with, it's like, oh man, I got this controller scheme. All right, this is what I got to make do with. And then it wasn't just that, but like also like this was also like depending on which character you chose, depended on what you would get as far as your carts or what you could choose for your cart. So like that also, like if you weren't like hardcore into it, you would just be like, all right, cool, let me choose Daisy and let me choose this cart. And then, who knew?
You had to unlock her at 150cc.
You're not wrong.
You had to
I'm just saying.
Okay, she was not like a given. All right. Sorry.
I'm just saying, like, as a new person, like if you're just coming into it and like, all of your friends are already playing it a lot, and you're like, oh, let me choose this cart and this character, and it's a terrible combination. Well, that is what it is, you know what? Upside, you'll get all the cool items because you're towards the back.
Well, they also had the bikes.
Yeah, this is where they introduced the bikes. Yeah.
Yep, first game that had bikes.
It was a big deal. Yeah. I remember unlocking things, and then you can unlock more of the, you got the bikes, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And then I literally never played with any of the bikes. It just wasn't.
From what some of the stuff I read from the developers, some of the like depending on the track would dictate really if a bike was better for it or a cart was better for it. I kind of like playing with bikes, but I still was never really great at it. Now, real quick before we continue on, for my own experience with this game, I played this a lot at friends' houses in college. And I remember I've referenced this before back all the way actually in Mario Month last year. And we kind of did a follow up on it. Something about Mario Month just brings up this topic. Pizza Tuesday. Pizza Tuesday was a friend thing. It was like a friend group where every Tuesday we would hang out and eat pizza. We weren't very creative with our naming scheme. What do you mean? It's Pizza Tuesday. What do you do there? Well, let me tell you.
What are you talking about?
We eat pizza on Tuesdays. But no, we would. It was just me and a bunch of friends from high school. We all kind of went to college together. Some people went to different colleges, but we all were in the same area, and so we would hang out every Tuesday. And usually it was Smash Brothers. We played a ton of Smash Brothers Brawl and Melee and whatnot. But we did play Mario Kart Wii because this was like more than anything, we played a lot of Wii games at this time because that's when we were all hanging out. The Wii was out. That was like the Nintendo system at the time. That was the Nintendo ecosystem at the time. So I remember playing this, and I've said before on the series, the Mario Kart games have never really been my forte. I never really quite got into it, and I enjoyed this well enough, but I would say out of all the Mario Kart games I've played, this is the one I would have the most nostalgia for because we just played it a lot at Pizza Tuesday. But other than that, I never really had much experience with it. Now, to call back something you brought up before, I think it was you, Joe, who brought it up with the drifting and how there was sparks and whatnot. This was one of the first games that you could either choose to manually drift or automatically drift. Which definitely helped with kind of fit in with the whole Wii design philosophy of appealing to more than the core gaming audience, appealing to casual players and whatnot. So now you could either be a core, if you're one of the hardcore players, you could play on manual, and you were rewarded for that. If you could figure out boosting, if you could figure out drifting, it would actually give you a boost. If you do it automatically, you do it automatically, so you do the turns better, but you don't get that boost anymore. So it rewarded the skill players for being a little bit better than those who just did the automatic, which I think is kind of cool. And for the bikes, you're correct. It is the first game in the series to have bikes, and the reason for that, Hideki Kono, the producer of the game, he was really big into extreme sports at the times and X Games and whatnot, and he actually wanted to include this in Mario Kart DS, but wasn't able to. And so in this, he added bikes in because he kind of wanted to do like a BMX style game. And so when he wasn't really allowed to, he just kind of said, "Well, I'm just going to include it in here," and that's why there's half pipes in some levels to kind of appease that whole X Games extreme sports idea that he had going in his head. But yeah, sorry, there is you guys were still talking about some of the other stuff, some of the tracks. So Joe, why were you not a fan of the bike?
Okay, so when you had the bikes, it was the wheelie aspect of it. And from my understanding, I was never any good with the bikes. You are 100% correct when you said the track dictated which vehicle you would prefer to use, which also usually your track dictated how heavy the character needed to be, or how not heavy a character should be if you had any kind of flight areas of it. But the bikes had like a weird wheelie function that I could not grasp, because I think the wheelie was supposed to be what the boost was for the vehicles. I have not played with a bike in this game in like a really long time, but if memory serves me right, the wheelies, they were supposed to be better. But I did not enjoy that. It was like unwieldy, and I just couldn't handle it. And I was like, nope, this is too hardcore for me. I am not here for bikes. Give me my stupid carts and let me just drag them around with their little sparks.
It was unwieldy.
It was wieldy. Nice.
The pun game is strong on this episode. Damn.
We get it. We're getting it.
We're getting it. Okay.
Hey.
Hey. Oh. Yeah, I mean, this game had a lot of kart variety. It also added a lot of new things to the series. There's a lot of firsts in this game. It was not the first game that allowed online play in the Mario Kart series. Technically, that was Mario Kart DS, but it was the first home console game that allowed online multiplayer, which I've heard mixed things about. Like, it was overall not great in terms of connectivity.
Yeah,
did either of you try it?
Yes, we tried it.
It's not.
It was not great. I mean, back then, internet was not nearly what it is now. Also, the online servers and networking is, I mean, even now it's still not great, but like back then they were still trying to even work out those kinks with that stuff.
I can't remember if it was the Wii or the Switch. I think it was the Wii. Or the Wii U, actually, now that I think about it, might have been the Wii U. They didn't have a way to plug in an actual, you had to do Wi-Fi. I think the Wii had the internet. They still had an Ethernet plug to it where you could actually plug the internet into it, right?
Yeah. Well, they always had like the USB.
No,
like,
they didn't. The
adapter.
Switch didn't. The actual base didn't have it. That's what I'm saying.
They had an adapter that you could plug in.
But the adapter didn't come out until like 6 months later because there was nothing to even. It was just, this was something I remember specifically because we wanted to play online and we couldn't immediately.
Yeah.
And we had to wait till I bought the damn adapter.
Oh, that's right.
And then we bought the adapter, and it wasn't, nothing internet wise was fast enough to actually hold a signal to be able to play it. So we just didn't.
Yeah. Fair.
I don't know if that was necessarily your fault either. Most likely, as we've seen with Nintendo, they don't really do online well. It's not historically.
They don't.
They have not been good with it.
Yeah. Even like nowadays with the Switch, you still have to, like, with some of them, you have to have a separate app in order to do some of the features, and it's like, man, you guys are making this difficult.
It's on purpose because it's a family system.
Yeah, I know.
And they want to make sure they can track, if you have your Nintendo Online account, there can be an IP address and there needs to be a phone number to it if you want to speak into games because they want to protect kids. That's from the understanding that I have. But
Sure.
It's fair, but it still is frustrating a little bit. So, for example,
my God,
yes. I just beat on Twitter and Blue Sky. I've been keeping track of all the games I beat this year. And so literally before we recorded this will put a specific time and date for when if people go back and find this. I beat Super Kiwi 64 on my Switch. By the way, if you love like N64 collectathon platformers, it's worth trying. It's like $3. It's only like an hour and a half long, super short, sweet game. Not difficult in the slightest. Like, it's laughably easy. But in any case, I wanted to I tried to include a screenshot of the game so that way I can post it with my little like one tweet review type of thing. In order to get a screenshot off your Switch, you have to you take the screenshot with the screenshot button, you go into the gallery, and then it says send to phone or send to send to your phone or something like that. So you select send to phone, and essentially a QR code pops up, which then allows you have to turn on your Wi-Fi, do a QR code scanner, scan the code, and then it'll basically connect you it'll give you the passcode to the Switch. The Switch turns into a small Wi-Fi hotspot that doesn't have any internet. It's literally just meant to transfer the image file from the Switch to your phone or whatever device you have, and then that's it. It's so convoluted. I'm like, can't you just like email it to somebody? You're already connected to the internet. Just let me type in my email and just email me the picture. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. I feel like this is so unnecessary.
So I think it's that way. And I agree with you. I have hundreds of Animal Crossing photos that I had to do like that. So I believe me, I hear you. And then after a while, I just ignored that and I just took the card out of the Switch and just took them off the card instead. But I think it's like that because they know that modern day people are doing everything on their phones anyway, and you're not necessarily reading email or sending yourself an email, but you are sending photos through lots of different social media apps. So I think they thought, oh sweet, we'll just use the QR code, have it talk directly to the Switch, have it be exactly what you said. It's basically just a Wi-Fi hotspot and you're grabbing onto a hard drive that only does this one function. So I think it's because they were like, people are on their phones, they're not going to want to email each other. I've been trying to figure out why they did it like that, but
I can access my email from my phone. Like, it's not hard. I don't get like everything. It's so much easier with your email. Like, anyway.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
Anyway, this isn't true. Mario Kart Wii. I'm just ranting and raving about this. But some of the other things they added with Mario Kart Wii, they added licenses, which is for a fancy term for just personal accounts. Your personal profile on the Wii. But it was kind of cool because if you look at the snapshot, basically the license, the picture that they offer for the license effectively shows what each player has accomplished. So you can see if you have a gold next to your, whatever there's a row for CCs, and then there is a column for the cups. Columns are the cups, rows are which like difficulty, 50cc, 100cc, 150, so on and so forth. And then so if you get gold in the first cup, what is it, the mushroom cup, I want to say it is. If you get gold in the mushroom cup, then at 50cc it'll appear in that top left corner. If you get gold in the mushroom cup at 100cc, it'll still be in the far left column, but now it's down on the second row, so on and so forth. So you can see what each player's skill is. So it'll be bronze if they get bronze, silver if they get silver, so on and so forth. And you can see how well they do. I thought that was kind of cool. It's a nice little touch that you can then, I would imagine as a kid you'd bring friends over and be like, hey guys, check out how good I am at Mario Kart. Look at that, full gold. I bet you there was like some type of expression that kids had back then. Like, I'm not saying full gold was it, but I could totally picture it.
Sure, especially because like Nintendo doesn't do achievements. That they famously they don't do achievements. So they, instead, I guess this is probably a way so that way they could like a personal achievement for this specific game. So that way you actually can, this is your showing off. This is your, hey, I got 1,000 points in this game type of thing, I feel like that's what it also was. And I agree. This was definitely just like hey, look, everybody, I was able to do all this stuff. Isn't that pretty cool? And I do think it is. It's a nice addition that they didn't have to do. And it also went with like their whole like Mii characters that they're doing at the time as well. Which, you know, I know you could also play as your Mii characters in this, which was also kind of cool because we all made Mii characters on the Wii, and we all played as them sometimes, and that was a whole lot of fun as well.
My Mii never got played with. I played with Daisy when she was unlocked. I always played with Daisy. but outside of that, I mean, whoever was nobody else wanted to play with, I would play with. But I really loved seeing like Troy's Mii was fantastic. Amanda's Mii was great. Like everybody's Mii's looked like them, so it was really fun.
And real quick, listeners, Troy is one of the other co-hosts of Taste of Dragons who has been on the show once before. He was on the Assassin's Creed episode way back, I want to say in winter 2021, like December 2021.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Man, time just never stops, does it?
No, it does not. Now, you mentioned the Mii's. What was interesting is one of the programmers who worked on this game got pulled away by Miyamoto during development to work on the Mii channel. So while they did lose a programmer, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. And this is from the Iwata Asks. Hideki Kono says, and I quote, "But as a result of that," meaning the producer getting pulled away, or the programmer, excuse me, "we were able to introduce a lot of cool features into Mario Kart Wii. The spectator stands are full of cheering Mii's, and they can be seen in the course backgrounds. For example, the Yoshi Sphinx may be on the track, but then all of a sudden he may be your father's Mii. From a technological perspective, that wouldn't be possible without fully understanding how the Mii's work." End quote. So that's kind of cool though. Like, so Mii's would actually come into the game in more ways than just you playing at them. They could appear in the stands, or as we saw in the Yoshi Sphinx, it may be your dad just staring down on you with judgment. Who knows?
Yeah, it's true. And I do think that was one of the really, really cool things about the Wii. And it was all about like you said, marketability and opening it up to the mainstream, where like, you could put something in there that looks like you and then see that in the background, and, or, make one for your grandmother and then see them, cheering you on in the stands. And, it wasn't just with this game, it was with a lot of their games. And I think that definitely helped with the whole blockbuster nature of the Wii console. And that was, super unique, super cool. And like I said, we all played as ourselves sometimes. We would just have an entire race where it was just our Mii characters. we would be like, I'm literally throwing this red shell at you. Specifically.
It's true. Vengeance was a key factor, and who cares if you win as long as this other person gets not one.
Exactly. Sometimes when you're playing, you're like, oh, I don't remember who Bowser was, who was playing as Bowser, but I definitely know who has that hair, and you're going down.
I could just imagine how much more personal everything felt, like now it wasn't like Mario hitting you with a shell. Like you said, it was you were. I wonder if this escalated feuds between friends, because now it was much more personal.
That's so funny. It did.
It did? Okay.
Yeah,
oh God,
I can tell you it did.
Some of the other things that made this game unique, because it was on the Wii, was also the addition of the Mario Kart Wii channel, or the channel, the channels on the Wii were such an interesting and bizarre idea. Like, for all intents and purposes, they were just apps. They were just programs on your Wii. But I guess because, analog TVs and everything, like no one had really seen something like that. The closest thing you would see at the time was the 360 and the PS3, but the PS3 came out, I want to say, the same year as the Wii. The 360 had only come out 2 years prior, and it had the Red Ring of Death issue. So there was a whole bunch of issues that it was experiencing early in its life cycle. So what's kind of wild to me, if you really think about it, like this era of gaming between the 360, Wii, and PS3, each major player had a very unique and different way of tackling how do we communicate, like a menu system and a UI to our users to play on these systems. Like, the Wii had channels. the PS3, what was it? It had that weird, like, you know, I don't know what you would even call it. They had a name for it because the PSP used the exact same system. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about? Where it was like
Yeah, yeah,
you would
yeah.
move left and right, and then that would essentially be like categories of the stuff. You know, like there's the game category, so that's where your save files were, that's where your
Yeah.
downloaded games were, that's where your disc was, and then there was, you
Mm-hmm.
know, PS Online. And the Wii kind of had something similar where, but they had the weather. Remember the Weather Channel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very just weird and unique, and like all these consoles also came out, prior to the iPhone and the App Store being a thing.
Yeah.
So like, this is just all of them trying to implement their own version of, whatever they were trying to do, because and Nintendo went with channels.
It's just so the Wii. I want to do an episode on the Wii at some point, but I remember in doing research a while ago about it, like one of the things that Wii was really trying to do was to, in a sense, they marketed it better for sure. Remember when the Xbox One came out and it flubbed its launch because it was trying to be the all-in-one thing. You know, it was trying to be your cable box, it was
Mm-hmm.
trying to be your game system, it was trying to be everything, and then it had
Mhm.
all that always online DRM bullshit and this and that. If you really think about it, the Wii was the Wii kind of was like that at one point too. Like you were meant to leave your Wii in rest mode all the time. Like apparently they originally had the idea of like the light on the Wii was going to change color depending on like what time of day it was and stuff like that. And like I forget, I'm butchering this explanation. I have to redo the research, but it was meant to be on, not like actually on, but like always on in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in rest mode or otherwise.
Yeah, it was
Um,
always giving you some sort of information that you
yeah,
could use in your everyday life. Yeah, I remember that as well, and I forget exactly what it was supposed to do as well. Like if it was supposed to be like if it's rainy outside or if it's like forecasting the weather or whatever it was. Yeah, there was definitely something with that ring light that was supposed to be different, and yeah, they were, again. This was it was only 15 years ago, but like it still seems like a lifetime ago as far as what they were trying to do with all of their different consoles and what they were implementing and what their programmers were coming up with and their producers, like all their creatives, what they were doing at that time was pretty innovative. And not everything caught on, obviously, but it definitely carries on through even modern day now.
I think Nintendo's
mhm.
always been really good at that, though.
Yeah.
They don't, not to, praise them. They've done plenty, they've made some stinkers. We all know that. But I think that a lot of the time with the way they develop is they don't care about how video games are being played right now. They're trying to figure out how games are going to be played 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. They want you to continue playing with the Wiimote with something, they want you to keep moving. They want you to, there's just a lot of that kind of accessibility and continued
The
accessibility to other people as well, instead of just hardcore gamers.
To steal a point from Retronauts, something that Jeremy Parrish has said a few times, and I kind of agree with. Nintendo, before getting into the games industry, was a toy manu. I mean, they were a lot of things. That
Mhm.
Yeah.
infamously they had the Love
Cards.
Hotels and
Yep,
cards. The
those two.
Hanafuda cards was their first thing, yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
But they were a toy manufacturer for like a solid decade before they got into video games. And Jeremy has, I don't know if it's technically been proven, but he kind of speculates and theorizes. I kind of agree with it, that they never really lost that toy making mentality. And you can see it how they design their systems. The only system they truly tried to design as like a, hey, we're going to try to powerhouse this thing, was the GameCube. And it didn't do well. It didn't sell well. The Wii, they basically did such minimal upgrades in terms of hardware and tech and whatnot, and went more for like, well, how will people actually play this? And then the Wii took off. They butchered the Wii U for various reasons. It's an underloved and underappreciated system. It's much better than what people have you believe, in my opinion.
100% agreed.
But
Agreed.
the Wii U was actually a great system, just not well made for, not well developed for, in any case.
Correct.
And then the Switch, if you really think about it, it reinvented the wheel again with how people play games. And they also had amiibos, which is a kind of an extension of that toy mentality. And to bring it back to Mario Kart Wii, they packaged this game with a toy wheel that you can put the Wiimote in and literally physically turn the wheel like it's an actual steering wheel and steer Mario Kart. We talked about it a little, like we alluded to it lightly, just talking about like playing with the wheel. Like that was the new control scheme. You could play with the Wiimote and the nunchuck. You could also plug in your GameCube controller and play with the GameCube controller if you wanted to. But then you could also play with the wheel, and it was really simple controls. You turn left and right by turning left and right, and you hit the 2 button or the 2 on the Wiimote, and that's accelerate. And that's it. That's all you have to really do. And then 1 was brake. So for casual players, since that's what the Wii was marketing to, that's so simple. All I have to do is just hit 2. I just hold the gas button and gas brake button, and I can physically turn the remote. I don't have to worry about which buttons I'm touching, or which am I hitting the left D-pad or the right D-pad or any of this other stuff. You can just do it. The D-pad instead, when you were controlling with motion controls, was used for your items. You could either hit forward to throw the item forward, or hit back or down to throw the item behind you. Then there was a B button, which was kind of like a proto trigger type of thing. It was on the back left side of the controller, and from how you're holding it in the wheel, I should say. And
correct, yeah.
that was used for drifting if you wanted to use it. But if you didn't want to use it, like we said before, you could set it on automatic and you wouldn't really have to worry about it. And it just to also illustrate how serious Nintendo takes its toy-like mentality. Do you know how many iterations of that damn wheel they made before it came up with the one that we see here, the one that we have?
No, I don't know how many.
About 30. There's
wow.
About 30 different iterations of the Wii'll were made. Some of them had like if you go to the Iwata S, you can see pictures of it. Some of them had the Wiimote up towards the top of the wheel, so there's like kind of like two of the sides of the Wiimote were poking out of the top. Others were more square because it's more like how go-karts design their wheels.
Yeah.
And surprisingly enough, the you know how the back of the wheel that has this blue ring, that's also the symbol that's used, I think, for the Wii as well as for Mario Kart Wii.
Correct.
Apparently, that blue ring cost a lot of money to add, and it was not needed. It's literally there for aesthetics. That's it.
Visual flair.
That's so Nintendo to just add something just because it makes it look better. You know? and you were right with the accessibility, because if you want to play your games, like you came out with the Wii Sports, and everybody can bowl, everybody can hit tennis, because everybody knows how that works. And it's the same way with this. Everybody knows how a steering wheel works. You can hand a steering wheel to your grandfather or to your grandmother, and they know exactly the controls. They know how to steer left, steer right. All they have to do is just hit a button, like you said, and that accelerates. Whereas if you hand them a controller, it's not as intuitive if it's your first time. Whereas in steering wheel, it's never your first time. It's you're just going. So yeah, that it was a very smart addition to a very mainstream game that they were going for.
And with the wheel, and like you said, to keep it mainstream, they went during the play testing with some of these people who aren't necessarily core gamers. They noticed that when they were turning the wheel, they would drastically move their body from side to side. They would, how like you put your whole body into it. Exactly. So they tried to have the game react to that. So it wouldn't just necessarily react. So if you like lean to the left a little bit, Mario's going to react, or they tried to make Mario react at least a little bit, which is it's cool. Like that's something cool.
Yeah.
That's like really smart playtesting. Another way that you could interact with other people in the game, since this game was all about interaction, though. I mean, that's the Wii. The Wii's moniker was, you play together. It's, we play together. That was like a huge marketing point of the Wii. I remember, like, I think even the will you play with me or something was like, I don't remember. There was like this weird commercial, remember, of like some dude walking around to people's houses and like giving them a Wiimote.
It was two guys. They would show up at your door and I would say, "Will you play with me?" And it would turn into like, "Wii, you play with me." And the two of them they would turn into the Wii, the eyes of the Wii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. So yeah, one of the other ways that you could do that, there was matchmaking on the online multiplayer. We already mentioned the online multiplayer. The matchmaking would pair you up relatively based on your skill. You could also download, quote unquote, a ghost of another player and watch them race and try to beat their time. There was also ghost battles where you could get a random player's ghost who was around the same level as you, with the Mario Kart channel. That was where this all kind of was housed, and you could race against their ghost. So it's kind of a cool way to like challenge yourself. And in general, there was then the developers' ghosts, where you could just do time trials and try to beat their time and see if you could get all. I believe like if you, what is it? There, I think, wasn't there something for getting all the ghosts or beating all the ghosts or something like that?
There might have been. I didn't do that part of it very much. It was mainly just versus modes, so I didn't really do the ghost mode all that much.
I did, and I'm trying to remember what you got from it though, because I know the dry bone, the bones Bowser, like the dry Bowser, he was you didn't get him from that. You got him from, I think, getting a gold on all of the 150cc ones. Yeah. I think that's how you got him. I'm trying to remember who you got or what you got. There was some achievement of some sort. I have to think about it.
I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but I do think we should go into talking about what are some of the things they added to this game. Like we talked a little bit about, we've talked a lot about the additions of like multiplayer and the extreme sports and all that other stuff. In Mario Kart Wii, there were 16 new tracks and 16 throwbacks, and I think we should all at least shout out our favorite track. And I wonder if we're all going to have a similar answer. I feel like there's like one really popular answer that everyone goes to, but we'll see. For the throwback tracks from the previous games, they had a pretty good mix of, Super Nintendo, N64, DS. Let me see here real quick. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different games from the DS. From the GameCube, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 games from the GameCube. I wonder if there's like 4 from each. Super Nintendo, I'm seeing about 4 possibly. I'd have to double check, but it seems like they kind of have it all spread out for the most part. There's probably not 4 each, but there's a decent amount. Like that's 16 retro tracks, and then obviously all the new ones. Do either of you have any favorite tracks from both either retro? Well, no, let's try to stick to the new ones because retro was already, all these tracks appeared, all those tracks appeared in other games. So any of the tracks from this game that were new to this game, any that stick out to you personally?
I can't remember which ones were new. There's been too many Mario Karts now that my brain has meshed all of the tracks together, especially after the latest Mario Kart where they just keep bringing in old tracks. But I can't remember which ones were new from that.
I always gravitate to whatever the Rainbow Road is for that Mario Kart. And just because of how ridiculous it is. Like I love going into it for the very first time going, all right, what craziness have they thrown into this one? And that's what I always love doing. Oh
God, no. For me, just favorite tracks in general. You've always got like your classics, your Yoshi's Waterfalls, your Moo Moo Meadows, your Simplicity ones, the Peach Gardens. They're like the ones that have like a fun season change to them every time. But I think the Cookie Land, there's a cookie track that's basically like a Kirby Yoshi's Cookie kind of like it's a dumb track, but it's really great. I like that one was one of my favorites.
Fair. Fair.
I was personally a fan of Coconut Mall. Coconut Mall is just so silly and fun. I'm also a fan of just mall. I'm a fan of malls, like in real life, like IRL. I like malls. I always wanted to. This is a bit of a tangent. I always wanted to pull a Kevin Smith and just be a mall rat for a day, and like call out of work and just hang out in a mall all day long. I could honestly probably still do that, but I'd feel guilty now that I'm a dad. I'm like, sorry, kid, I'm not going to stay home and help your mom take care of you. I'm going to hang out at a mall all day. I don't think I can get away with that anymore.
I really like the Bowser's Castle that they had from, I think it was from Nintendo 64. That one was a lot of fun.
That was a great level.
I mean, most things involving Bowser is almost always guaranteed to be a good time. So, yeah.
I think this one had the Mushroom Gorge as well. That was one of the flying areas that you always had the.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the ones that I mean, was there flying in other games? You know what? I don't even remember. The thing is, like, there's so many of these games, they introduce new things, but since they repeat so many of them as the series goes on, it's hard to remember exactly which game it appears in.
Right.
You know, like
the flying came in on the 64, and I want to say the GameCube one had a decent amount of flying in it as well. But I think it was just like the upgraded everything had. You know,
yeah, who knows?
I think I remember, considering I did an episode on Mario Kart 64 already, but these all are blurring. I'm going crazy, y'all. It's been a Mario Kart month of just buried headfirst into Mario Kart. And actually, speaking of other things that were new to this game, there's lots of racers in this game. There was 26 racers in this game.
Yeah.
I think Funky Kong, this is his first appearance. It's also Rosalina's first appearance, which makes sense because she was in Mario Galaxy. It was also Dry Bowser's first appearance. Baby Daisy was also new. There's a bunch of Baby Peach, and were all the babies new? No, Baby Mario and
no, just Baby Peach and Baby Daisy, because we didn't get Baby Roz until I want to say this newest one.
This newest one, yeah.
There was also a bunch of new power-ups. I think we were talking a bit about it off mic, just trying to remember because there's so many power-ups. But like the Thundercloud, which was new to the console Mario Karts, I guess they were on the arcades prior to this. I'm not entirely sure. But the Thundercloud, there's also the POW block, which is kind of like the Thundercloud, like the lightning, but slightly worse. Like POW, so the lightning strikes every racer. Or maybe the POW's even better. I'm trying to remember. So I was watching a video and they said the POW was like a worse version of Lightning. But now that I'm reading the wiki, maybe it's the other way around. Lightning strikes every racer ahead of the user, causing them to spin out and shrink and lose all their items. The POW block appears, and I believe it does every single player, no matter what. I want to say.
I think that's right.
That sounds right.
But if
I don't remember the POW. I don't remember getting the POW block almost ever. It was one of those that like just never spawned.
Well, the crazy thing is it only affects players on the ground. So if you see the POW block, if you're lucky enough to be going off of a jump right when the POW's going to hit, then because it appears above you and it'll slowly shrink down like a POW block does in the game. So you have some time to react. So if you can either hop at the right time, or you can, I don't know if hopping actually works, but if you can go off a jump at the right time, it does not affect you. The Thundercloud, honestly, a super cool idea for an item where essentially it's a power up that's not actually a power up. It's more of a debuff. So if you get the item and you get the Thundercloud, you have like 10 seconds or so where the cloud will hover above you, and you have 10 seconds. Unless you drive into and bump into another racer, then it passes the Thundercloud over to them. And if you can do that before the 10 seconds is up, then you don't get struck by lightning. But if you can't pass it along, then you get struck by lightning. So it's kind of a cool idea where it's like it's a debuff for the player, but it adds a new wrinkle of complication to the mechanic where it's like, well, it's a debuff, but you can pass it. You can hot potato this thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think the other new item is like the Mega Mushroom, which I think was one of my favorite items because you could just flatten people with that thing. And it's so satisfying to just, especially if you're using your Mii characters, it's just so satisfying. Just completely destroying people in front of you.
It's like a demolition derby almost.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's the item I think I remember the most, and I loved using the most from that game.
I mean, if you can get it, of course, it's always
Of course, yeah,
hit or miss with everything.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have too much else to add to this. I will say, when I'm doing these episodes, I usually go into the Mario Wiki just to see if what are some of like the oddly specific things that like you don't know. Like in the Game Boy Advance one for Super Circuit, it was all about which racers, like when you're playing against like the computer players, depending on the character you choose, determines which racer is going to race strongest against you. So that was cool to see. In this, what I find odd is like there is a bizarrely technical breakdown of every single vehicle and its stats.
They were so uneven, though. That's why it was so massively uneven.
I don't understand what I'm looking at though. Like it's literally just all points. Like standard Mario Kart. Okay, so the standard. So for example, for medium vehicle stats, the standard Kart M is 4.31. I'm guessing that's like tons or pounds or whatever. Whatever that weight's supposed to be. Standard speed 79.77 kilometers an hour. Fair enough. While steering, it just goes 0.9943. I'm assuming that's like percentage, like 99.43% of its max speed while steering. Maybe.
Gotcha.
I'm really not quite sthen it says acceleration while not drifting. And I guess that's like 0.59 kilometers per hour. But then it goes S2, S1, S2, S3, S4, and then E. I'm like, you don't shift gears. I don't understand what these S's are for. Do you guys? Do you know what they're talking about with this?
No, I'm not a professional Mario Kart player. I feel like when people do that, it's almost as if like when they do it for like Super Smash Brothers or whatever, when they start counting the frames of like iframes, and they start like, what's the amount that you knock somebody up, depending on your distance from them, like wave dashing and all that other stuff. I feel like if there's a competitive aspect to it, and it seems to be like gravitating towards like Nintendo stuff specifically, like people get into that and they like break it as far down as they can. They're like, oh, let me, do whatever. And I feel like it kind of is like nowadays worth like, hey, can I beat Elden Ring using just my feet? Like, I feel like it's like that kind of thing where, people just get so into something that they want to find like the next thing, or they want to find, the little nuances and how they could, min-max the best that they can. And yeah, I don't understand any of what you said because that is not me.
Okay. Okay. Only because of F-Zero do I understand any of the things you've said out loud.
Okay.
Okay, please.
No, I don't remember how important they are, but I played a lot of F-Zero in my day, and shout out to the bike, the F-Zero bike, by the way. That was probably that one and the Cheap were the best bikes in the whole game. No, they were not really the best bikes, but they were my favorites.
Fair.
So shout out to them. But there's a lot of it had to do with the handling, like the grade it got had to do with the handling, the traction, the speed, those things that keep it on the ground, like all the physics of it all. A lot of it's that. I don't remember exactly how many there were or which ones did what, but I do recall a lot of it from F-Zero, and I'm pretty sure if I turn that on, I will remember a lot more of it. I forgot that how deep that went in Mario Kart.
It's
Jeez.
insane. I don't like everything is just like decimals and shit. I don't know what it like. It gives me nothing to compare it to. Like there's no unit of measurement. Like at least with the speed, it tells you it's kilometers per hour, and then the while steering, I'm once again just assuming it's percentage. But when it goes to acceleration, what's the 0.59? Is that 0.59 kilometers per second or like per second? I don't
So
know.
there'll be it's probably 0.59 is actually from whatever the neutral state is. So we don't know what neutral is. We don't know which cart is considered the neutral cart where everything is at 0, everything's at 1. It's probably like literally Mario's cart, I would assume. But I don't know which bike was the neutral.
Yeah, so maybe they only accelerate, 0.59 versus 1. So,
Yeah.
half acceleration as far as something else. Maybe
it's like I'm likening it to the F-Zero bars where you'd have your acceleration, and instead of giving you a percentages of any kind or decimals, they'd give you literally a bar that shows you all the different stats in a chart, essentially. And, you see a little green bar up and down on the acceleration, on the speed, on the recovery, on the traction, like on those parts, on boost. Like for me, I barely boosted almost ever. So I never cared if something had good boost or, or not. I just wanted something that would go really, really fast and stay going fast and continue accelerating if I was able to get a good stretch. But if it was a course with a ton of curves and everything in it, you don't pick a car like that or a bike like that. You'd pick something that had better acceleration. So it would, you'd be slowing down on turns. You're going to need more acceleration, and it would tell you which. I'm assuming those stats are based on those things. What's got the best acceleration?
I did do just a little bit more reading on the wiki. The S1, 2, 3, like the S1 through 4 is essentially just the gears you're in. So S1 is like first gear, but it's all done automatically. So it's just basically telling you in every gear, this is what your acceleration speed is, which makes sense because when you. So like S1, it's at 0.728. S2 is also this is for the standard cart S for small vehicles. 0.728, 0.728 for S1 and 2, but S3 it drops down to 0.5034, and then when you're into fourth gear, it's at 0.07034. And I guess E, maybe that's like, I don't know what E stands for. I'd have to double check, but yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. That's wild to me that it's that in depth. Now, do you
I just realized something though. Did you guys realize this is something I completely did not realize while playing either? I don't think I've ever noticed this. I didn't realize all the different carts actually changed color depending on the character you were playing. These are dumb things that I'm just now noticing right now. But I was like, you know what? The Cheep Cheep was really cool. I'm going to go look up the stats on that cart. And I'm looking at it, and depending on the character you were playing, the Cheep Cheep would change color as well. And that's so cool. If you played as the dark gray, if you played as the like dry bones, he had a literal like gray toned Cheep Cheep. It's so cool. Sorry. Sorry about that.
It's little things like that though that are like, I don't know. I like small attention to detail things like that aren't necessary, but if you notice it, you really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to change the color of the racer, the carts at all, really.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, I don't have much more to add to this for Mario Kart Wii. I was going to go into just like the listener section with like comments and whatnot, but I want to throw it over to you guys real quick. Is there anything that you'd like to touch on that we didn't talk about? Anything like, oh, actually, you know what? There is one thing. At the very least, I'll still throw it over to you, and then we can move on to this. I want to talk about just the overall visuals and music of the game. But before we move on to that, do you have any final thoughts and comments on the gameplay and the items and all that good stuff?
For me, really, the main thing is how universal this game ended up being. As far as I know, this is like the second highest selling Mario Kart game, and that's only after the new one that they've released in like a million different iterations. And I think that's because it's just so, you can get into it so easily. It's just so adaptive. And I think it's carrying the series forward, which is why they probably haven't released a new Mario Kart in forever, because like they're just iterated on it so well. And I feel like this was definitely like the stepping stone for that. And yeah, that's my final thought on this.
I think for me, I really loved watching people find the glitches in this game. I watched a lot of people
speedrunners, especially.
Oh, God,
right. It's wild the ways they came, the things they figured out that were actually glitches, and like just start in reverse and then turn to the left, and you'll see there's like an actual like pixel off, and you drive towards that, and it'll clip you into this thing, and then you're in the air, and I'm like, I'm never going to be that cool, but wow, did I love people watching people break the game. I just loved it. It was so cool.
I watched a Games Done Quick somewhat recently of someone doing this or speedrunning this game, and on the Coconut Mall level, they essentially they somehow knock you out. They knock the racer out of bounds into the parking lot in the center of the track. So all you have to do is just drive around the really tiny thing in the center, like the parking lot in the center of the track, because it hits all the race triggers. So
that's so great.
It's wild to see. Like, if you had a chance to watch it, it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. It was really cool. Really, really, really cool. But no, for me with this, the only real thing I have to add to the gameplay before we talk about visuals and music is I don't like the motion controls at all. I think the motion controls are an abomination. I don't enjoy them in the slightest. I was playing it on my Wii for this, and I was like, I gotta play with the motion controls. That's how you're supposed to play it. Now, admittedly, I did not have the Wii'll, but even so, it really just did not feel good. Like, it's either too sensitive or not sensitive enough. Like, I could never find the sweet spot for turns. I never felt in control of my cart, versus when I played, I played, Double Dash on a freaking emulator, and I felt 10 times more control on that than I did on original hardware Wii with motion controls. It just, I don't like it. It's not my favorite. I understand why they did it, and I think it was an absolute necessity, because it sold the game to the casual audience, which is what it needed, which is what the Wii was supposed to do. And I think it's one of the most genius things they could have done. I just don't like it. I genuinely don't like it.
Agreed. And that goes back to the very beginning when we were all, passing around controllers, and there was always at least one controller inside the Wii wheel, just because. And it was just, man, if you ended up with that, you're passing that to somebody else. There was a reason that kept on getting passed around, because that always came in last.
It's like one person always has to be Jaws and GoldenEye, and one person gets to be Odd Job.
Exactly.
Someone's going to get dicked over, and someone's going to get the advantage. It's just how it is. It's just how multiplayer gaming works. Now,
exactly.
In terms of the visuals and music, I'm awful at it. I'm just going to be honest. I'm awful at describing these. I will say, I think overall, I don't like the color palette of this game. I think it's a little too muted and pastel-y. I don't know how else to describe it. I was watching a Scott the Woz video, his video about this, and I kind of agree with his one point where everything feels a little bit fuzzy. There's like this weird fuzz over top of the visuals. Like, if you go back to even just what Double Dash had just a few years earlier, like, that looks a lot more visually interesting than this. This, like, the colors are just kind of muted. I don't know. What do you both think?
Okay, so I agree they are muted, but I think it is because of the hardware itself and the time this came out. Double Dash was able to look that way because we were all playing it on a tiny screen. Double Dash was the DS one, right?
Yeah.
Just making sure we're talking about the same one.
No, that's the GameCube one.
The GameCube one. Oh my God, it's even better. The GameCube one, while the hardware was very alike in the two things, we were also moving into high-def television. And I think TVs had already gotten, like, when the Wii came out, TVs were already getting to that place where they were so much better. Everything was better looking that no matter what we were playing on our Wii, it did not look that good. Like no games really looked that good on this. I remember playing
Mario Galaxy looks beautiful still, like on a
you know
tube
what?
TV.
I'll give you that. Some
stunning.
Games they really cared about. They did some good. They did a good job not changing it, not having too many colors.
One. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No worries. Like looking back or looking at like a screenshot of it, yeah. Like now that you mention it, looking at Rainbow Road really does look like Pastel Road versus Rainbow Road.
I maintain I blamed a lot of things on the Wii when it was really my TV a lot of the time. True. So I guess I don't have a good idea of the way this looked at that point, because I think of like Twilight Princess was the Wii and the GameCube one, right? That came out and released.
Yeah.
I remember playing that on my GameCube and liking the way it looked, and then and playing it on my Wii, and I played it on the Wii first, and I did not like it. I also agree I don't really like motion controls for anything that needs to be actually accurate in any way. When you're playing a Wii Sport, perfectly fine. You're playing with all your friends, perfectly fine. You're supposed to be having a good time. It's not really about winning or losing. Great. But if it's about actually doing something and getting it done right, those motion controls are garbage. They're really horrible. I'm not a fan.
So bad.
I had nothing but curse words. But for the visual of this, I actually really liked the visuals in this game. I didn't have, I guess, I don't know. I didn't. It did not affect me in the way, and I usually complain about things being fuzzy or not looking good too. Yeah. I don't have bad feelings about this one.
I feel like I do feel like some of it is hardware based, because if you go back and you play it on like, you know, an emulator that you can up-res it, you can, you know, put it at modern day resolutions, that type of stuff, it definitely does look better. It definitely looks sharper. But yeah, I think the hardware is definitely the reason for the fuzziness. The fuzziness, I think they did what they could with it. And then they're like, all right, we need to kind of de-res this in order to make it run at a proper frame rate. That's what I think.
Do we know we only had 30 frames per second on that, right? Or did we get 60?
No, it was definitely 30. There was those.
We only had 30 frames per second on the Wii, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm gonna go look. Yeah. I just have to know now. Now I have to know.
I do know, like, depending on if you're playing split screen multiplayer or anything like that, then it would affect the frame rate, which makes sense because you're like quadrupling what is being done on screen.
Exactly.
But in general, I don't know just standard. Now, to be clear, my criticisms of the visuals, I don't think it's a bad looking game. I just think comparatively to what I've seen of the other Mario Karts, just like the overall like aesthetic design is just not my favorite. Like, listen, I understand, you know, just thinking of like the most recent one, you know, Mario Kart 8. I understand it's not going to look as good as that. That's in full HD. Excuse me. It's got like over when that came out, it wasn't a decade, but it was, you know, it's got a lot more time in between that. You know, like I get it. You know, it's going to be different. However, I still think like other games in this series still look pretty good. Like hell, if we're going with just 3D, Double Dash I think looks better than this. I think even like Super Circuit looks pretty good considering it's a 2D game. I don't know. This doesn't look bad. Just to be clear, I'm not saying this is a bad looking game. I just think from the aesthetics thing, I just wish it was like a little bit more vibrant. Like the colors, it's colorful, but it's not vibrant. And I just wish it was a little bit more vibrant.
I definitely agree with that, especially coming off of a lot of their other games, which are, you know, Wind Waker is vibrant. Like there's a lot of vibrant games, and I do feel like Nintendo is kind of known for being bright and colorful. And this was very non-saturated, I want to say.
That's fair. That's a fair
for their games, specifically for their games. I feel like this is a definitely desaturated version of it.
For sure. I don't have much to add with the, because I kind of talk about the overall aesthetics. With the music, I don't. It's good music, as with Mario Kart in general. It's once again like solid music. I do know some people don't like this soundtrack as much as others. Like I was listening to another podcast. I forget which. It might have been the Super Mercado Bros, but they were saying they don't like the music from Mario Kart Wii. I could be completely wrong. It's been like a year and a half since I listened to that episode, but I don't have an issue with it. It's not bad. It's once again, one of my biggest problems with myself, and that's why I've been doing this whole Mario Kart series for Mario Month and Mario Mania this year, is that like I don't pay attention enough to the Mario Kart games, but the music just never sticks out to me, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that if anything, if it did stick out to me, it's either because it's outrageously good or outrageously bad, and
Yeah,
obviously it's hard to make it outrageously good. I think this is just good solid music because it doesn't take anything away from the experience, and it sets a good vibe. That's a good way to describe it. The
I like
soundtrack of
it.
this game sets a really nice vibe.
Yeah, I agree, and I am not on the music, but on the sound effects. One of the things I really did enjoy is as you were playing, your individualized stuff would come out of your own speaker on your controller. So if you throw a blue shell, you would hear that come out of your speaker. Um, and I really enjoyed that. Again, just the tiny personal touches that they would do with this. That I hadn't experienced before. And as far as the soundtrack is concerned, yeah, I agree. It didn't do a disservice to it. It was definitely just like, sweet, this is not interfering with anything that I'm doing right now. And not everything has to be bangers. Everything can just be really nice, easygoing music that Nintendo does.
Joe, do you have any thoughts on the music?
I always have so many thoughts
I
about
know.
Nintendo music and music in general, but I do
Please go
think that
into it.
the one of the composers or the musical arrangement the people who worked on it was Asuka Hayazaki. And she had done the arrangements for later. She had done the Wind Waker HD rearranging for the new digital versions of things, and she had worked on one of the Animal Crossing games and a few other Yoshi, a couple games. So I felt like the very whimsical nature of the games that she had previously worked on. I think her first game was Zelda Four Swords, or one of the Zelda,
Okay.
one of those. So like she had a very interesting take, I think, on some of them. Most of the tracks are going to have the same kind of, I mean, it's going to be that nostalgia driven, like, oh, I love this song. But I kind of liked it. I kind of liked a lot of them, actually. Again, going back to the cookie level with the battle arena, like I just love hearing like the hokey, whimsical music from previous games. And so I think she's only one half of if memory serves me right, she's only one half of the composers that worked on the Wii one, but because there's almost always two people who work on it. I just can't remember the other guy's name.
Ryo Nagamatsu.
There we go. And I cannot remember what else he has worked on.
Yeah.
Her name I know because of Animal Crossing and because of Dragons of the Week.
That's true.
Dragons of the Week. Oh my god!
Yep.
Shout out to the Dragons of the Week, man. So listeners, back when Taste of Dragons wasn't on hiatus, every week they would do, or most weeks I should say, you switch up the format a few times, but for a while, every week you were doing a Dragon of the Week, which was just to highlight one individual in the gaming sphere, whether it's like an influencer, like a streamer, or like a content creator, or a developer, or someone who has like maybe even like an exec like Reggie Fils-Aimé or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone who had a hand in gaming culture. And I always love that. I actually found out, I reached out to this person, and they did respond to me, but she said that she couldn't just yet. Elizabeth Lapense, who was, I think Troy did a Dragon of the Week on her. She's a game developer who focuses on games from like an indigenous person's perspective. And so she made a whole bunch of games talking about like the treatment of indigenous people and this and that. Like there's one game, it's basically like Reverse Oregon Trail. I think, you know what? I have it on my phone. Give me 2 seconds.
That's
I know
right.
this is a tangent. When rivers were trails, and it's like
my goodness, yeah.
It's the Oregon Trail from the perspective of the indigenous people who are forced out of their land. And I have not personally played it, but it's on my phone, and she does other stuff like that. And she's currently working on another game. So when I heard Troy talk about her, I'm like, yo, I wonder if I can get her on the show. And I almost did. She got back to me and just said, I'm too busy right now. Follow up with me in a couple years and we'll see. And so that was like 2 years ago. So maybe I will follow up with her and we'll see.
Now's the time.
If I can get her on the show. That'd be really cool. Anyway, so yes, Dragons of the Week. I love that segment from your show.
Yeah, it was a very smaller version of what you do every single week. It was just a nice, 5-minute or 5-10 minute long segments where we would just focus on one person or one thing or whatever, and deep dive into it. Whereas you do deep dives every single week and they're hour long. So like it's a very much short, smaller version of what you do.
We were aspiring to be more like Still Loading.
Correct.
Well, I don't know about, I mean, you guys would, what I loved about the Dragons of the Week is it always covered stuff that I never would have thought of. It was such a unique perspective, and it was a little bit different than mine because I don't necessarily cover, like you covered who is it? She's a streamer. Oh my god, I can't remember her name. It was a really popular streamer. It wasn't like Pokemon. Valky Ray, there you go.
Yeah.
It covered Valky Ray. It's someone I never would have thought to even like. One, I never heard of her because I don't follow anything in that sphere of gaming, or very few. But it was cool to me because I learned more about someone who is a big voice in the gaming community and stuff like that. So it's an awesome segment. I always loved that.
Thank you.
Anyway. So I guess we should wrap up the episode here. Any final thoughts on the music or the visuals before I go into the listener section? Listener write-in section.
I think we covered everything.
I think we've done good. We did good today.
Yeah.
We've done good.
Yeah.
We've done good things. We've hopefully only made people happy and no one has lost anything. So we're good.
They'll be fine. No, we didn't blue shell anyone. We're good to go.
Right? We're good. We're good.
We didn't give them any blue shells.
Right? No blue shells here. No. Blue shells? No. Bullet bills? Yes.
I was trying to find, I don't know if it's a parrot. I hope someone read a blue balls joke into that with the whole blue shell thing, but I don't know.
I hope so.
Man,
I really hope. I was listening to like it's kind of there. Maybe I killed the joke now by explaining it, but hey, that's what I do, baby. Kill jokes, one shell at a time. All right. First up, from the Critical Arcade podcast, they wrote in from Instagram. I used to play for hours with my little brother and cousin. Incredibly special memories. That's all. That's what Mario Kart's all about, man. Is making memories with friends and family. I actually, before we close out the episode, I have a quote from Miyamoto that kind of goes into a little bit of that, but we'll get that at the very end. So
nice.
Yeah, I always like that, and that kind of ties in with what both of you were talking about, where you would meet up with a group of friends from your video game troupe, your acting troupe. What a wild concept. Yeah. I mean that as a compliment, by the way.
What a completely normal wild concept.
It is normal.
It was for us. It was pretty normal.
Besides, fuck being normal. If that's right. Not normal, fuck being normal.
Right. Exactly. Being normal is boring. Nobody wants normal.
And once you realize that literally nobody is normal and we're just hiding, most people just hide their weird, it makes it a lot easier to bust out of your shell.
Exactly.
Oh, it does.
Bust out of your blue shell, green shell, or red shell. One of those.
There we go. Have
really
a mushroom, you'll be happier.
Shells.
It is true though, and it's good advice. There's everyone out there, just be yourself as much as you want to be. You'll find your tribe.
Exactly.
All right, over from the Discord now, my buddy Magiac Man, Mario Kart Wii is easily my favorite Mario Kart, but also the biggest pain in the ass because I could never beat my sister in it, and to this day, she brings it up whenever I beat her in any game.
That's amazing.
That's pretty cool. Big props to your sister for remembering that. That's pretty funny, actually. Also, is it the only one of the games she's won? Is that it? Don't take that from her. Let her have it.
No, you need to rip it. I'm just kidding.
It's true. No pity wins. I'm not saying give anybody a pity win. I'm just saying.
Remember, Joe, we are also talking to the sore loser here. So,
look, I'm a sore loser. I'm understanding what he's going through. I'm trying to say, loser. I don't.
Sore losers anonymous right here.
Right? It's us.
Well, I guess we're not that anonymous.
Oh crap.
Magiac also writes that Coconut Mall is his favorite map. It will always be the best Mario Kart map. So there's another vote for Coconut Mall.
Nice.
It's a good map. It's a really good map.
Our final write-in from Masked Keaton, a friend of the show and patron. So thank you, Keaton, for being a patron. So Keaton writes, I was trying to unlock all the time trial expert ghosts by beating the ghosts by 5 seconds. I was keeping a mental list in my head of the ones I had beaten and was down to one track left. It was the ice level. I don't remember its name, but it was insanely difficult. Finally, after a week of practice and using every trick I could think of, I did it. I beat the ghost by 5 seconds and nothing unlocked. I pushed myself even further and shaved off another half second and nothing. Finally, I turned to the internet to find out the time I needed to beat and realized my mental checklist was wrong. I had already unlocked the expert ghost and had been racing it for the past week and gotten faster than the expert ghost by over 5 seconds. It was one of the most impressive achievements of my Mario Kart career, and I didn't even realize it. The last ghost was the mall. There we go. The last ghost was the mall, I think. And it's unlocked pretty easily.
Thank you. Oh,
there we
wow.
go.
I can't imagine being that much faster. My goodness. They were hard.
What a great story too! Like what?
Right? That's awesome.
5 seconds is nothing to sneeze at, man. In a racing game, that's a lot of time. That is a lot of time.
That's a lot of time in a not very long race. Like not very long races. Like it's not like these races are 4 hours long and you shave 5 seconds off. These races are like 3 minutes, 4 minutes long. In 5 seconds, it's a long time.
That's a good chunk of time, man. They did good.
That's awesome.
Better than I'll ever be. I'm awful at racing games. I am
so impressed.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed watching you guys play Forza Horizon or whatever that that open world Forza game.
Oh, it's Forza. You're
Forza
the reason we
Horizon,
bought an Xbox. That's what I like to call it.
It is actually. We did buy an Xbox specifically so that Joe could play that game.
I literally I buy consoles for a game. I won't buy the console until there's a game I want to play on it. But that one, as soon as I love the Forza, the open world Forzas, I love them. I don't know what it is about those games. They're just really fun to drive around and do nothing and not care about breaking things. It's great. And that one's gorgeous.
I wanted to play that literally just from watching. Anyway, we should wrap up this episode though.
It's worth it.
We're going. So that will do it for this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all so much for joining me. Brian, Joe, where can the good people find you online? And is there anything you'd like to promote?
Sure. Yeah. We are still streaming. We stream twice a week now. So you can still find us at Taste of Dragons on Twitch. We stream on Saturday nights where it's actually Joe and I playing a co-op games. We call it the co-op couple. So currently we're playing through Vampire Survivors and we start at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays. And then on Tuesdays, we talk about pop culture and all sorts of fun, movie trailers, acting news, all that type of stuff. We're live Tuesdays at 10 p.m. ish Eastern Standard Time. We do that with a couple of our friends that are all over the country. So that's a lot of fun. And then anything that you want to promote, Joe?
Nah, you got it.
That's
where I'm at.
All right. And as usual for myself, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, at Still Loading Pod, at Still Loading Podcast over on YouTube. If you want to support the show, please consider giving it a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcasting app you use. That helps more people find the show and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I like feeling warm and fuzzy. You can also support the show by going to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get all the episodes a little bit earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights, which help guide the direction of the show. I do quarterly polls to help pick future topics, as well as started it this year. I don't know how long I'm going to continue to shout it out, but I might as well shout it out again here. In the beginning of each year, I started it this year. I want to continue it next year as well. I'm going to do a backlog month poll where in September or October, I basically have all my patrons vote for, I put 16 games up on a poll, and the top 4 that got voted on will be the games that I cover in like September or October later that year. So this year,
cool.
The winners of the poll were Donkey Kong Country. I had never beaten Donkey Kong Country, so I need to finish that. Donkey Kong Country, The Order 1886, Final Fantasy VII, Dirge of Cerberus, and what's the last? Toe Jam and Earl. There we go. Toe Jam and Earl.
Oh.
So those 4 games won. It's a very eclectic blend of games, but that's backlog month, baby. You never know what you're going to get. So that's all for $1 a month. You get all those things, voting rights, early access, all that good stuff for $1 a month. For $3 a month, you'll get your name read at the beginning of the episode, like you heard on this one, as well as everything at the $1 tier. For $4 a month, you'll get everything on the previous 2 tiers, plus to access to 2 mini bonus episodes every month. And at this point, there's well over like 50 of them, maybe even closing in on 60 pretty soon. So there's lots of bonus episodes for you to check out. And then for $5 a month, you'll get everything I mentioned prior, plus access to Still Bonding, which is my monthly James Bond podcast where me and a bunch of friends bond over 007. The time this episode comes out, The World Is Not Enough should be the one that just came out, the second to last Pierce Brosnan Bond film. So lots of content over you for all you wonderful people over on Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. And that is all the time I have for you on this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all once again for listening. And before we wrap this up, I just want to thank all of my guests for the entirety of Mario Mania. This has been a wonderful celebration for episode 300. And there's going to be another big event later this year. It is the 10th anniversary of the show. I want to say in July is something like that. So 10 years of Still Loading is going to be in just a few months. Still not entirely sure what I'm doing for that, but I got months to plan it. But be on the lookout. I'm going to be doing something for that as well. Maybe not a full Mario Mania thing. I don't know if I can handle 2 big events like that in the same year. But episode 300, it was this whole Mario Mania thing for episode 300 has been awesome. Thank you to all of my guests who have joined me for this Mario Kart series, for your Mario Month, for Dexter, for starting up a new rewatch series with me with the Super Mario Super Show, and of course, all of my wonderful guests over on episode 300, the Super Mario Fantasy Draft. So that is all. Thank you for all hanging out with me throughout Mario Mania and Mario Month. I'll see you all next week for a new episode. So Brian, Joe, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, it was great. A lot of fun.
It was great having you back on. And before this episode ends, y'all, this is Future Josh jumping in because I forgot to do this. I teased it on an earlier episode this month and I forgot to do it. So I'm putting it in right now. My ranking of these Mario Kart games that I covered throughout this month. So let's dive into it real quick. At number 5 is Mario Kart 64. Number 4, Mario Kart Super Circuit. Number 3, this episode, believe it or not, Mario Kart Wii. Number 2, Mario Kart Double Dash, and bringing it into the top slot, Mario Kart DS. Man, that single player thing really put it over the edge for me. I really enjoyed that game. So yeah, that's my final ranking. And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.